In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where ancient species measure their existence in millennia and newer civilizations scramble for recognition, there exists a truth that few dare acknowledge: sometimes the most powerful beings are the loneliest. When a creature capable of melting starships with a breath finds herself cast out by her own kind, and when the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy turn their backs in fear, it takes something uniquely human to see past the scales and fire to the beating heart beneath. This is the story of what happens when humanity's greatest strength, our stubborn refusal to abandon those who need us, meets a force that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. It's about finding family in the most unexpected places, and how sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can ignite the largest flames of change. What begins as one human engineer's simple act of compassion will spiral into a tale that challenges everything the galaxy thought it knew about dragons, humans, and the true meaning of belonging. The maintenance bay of orbital station Kepler 442 hummed with the steady rhythm of fusion reactors and life support systems. Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands as he completed the final diagnostics on the atmospheric recycling unit. At 32, he had spent the better part of a decade keeping humanity's furthest outpost running, and he took pride in the work that others often overlooked. The station served as a crucial waypoint between the inner human colonies and the disputed territories beyond, where humanity's expansion had begun to brush against the domains of older, more established galactic powers. It was here, on the edge of known space, that the real work of diplomacy happened through trade, cultural exchange, and the careful navigation of interspecies politics. Marcus had always preferred the honesty of machines to the complexity of politics. Engines didn't lie, circuits didn't harbor hidden agendas, and, when something broke, you could fix it with tools and knowledge rather than carefully worded treaties. This philosophy had served him well throughout his career, even if it had earned him a reputation as something of a loner among the station's diverse crew. The proximity alarm chimed softly through the maintenance bay's comm system, followed by the voice of Commander Sarah Vale from the bridge. All stations, we have an unidentified contact approaching from Sector 7. It's moving slowly and appears to be damaged. Prepare for possible rescue operations. Marcus set down his plasma welder and moved to the nearest viewing port. Through the reinforced transparisteel, he could see the vast tapestry of stars that surrounded the station, but whatever was approaching remained invisible to his naked eye. He was about to return to his work when his personal communicator crackled to life. "Marcus, we need you on the bridge. Whatever's out there, it's big, and it's biological." The commander's voice carried an edge of uncertainty that immediately caught his attention. The bridge of Kepler 442 was a masterpiece of human engineering, designed to accommodate not just the station's human crew but also the various alien species that regularly visited for trade and diplomatic purposes. The central command area was surrounded by workstations that could be adjusted for beings ranging from the diminutive Zacti traders to the towering Vorlon ambassadors. When Marcus arrived, he found the bridge crew clustered around the main display, their faces illuminated by the blue-white glow of the scanner readouts. Commander Vale, a veteran of humanity's first contact wars, stood with her arms crossed as she studied the incoming data streams. "What are we looking at?" Marcus asked, moving to stand beside the tactical officer. Lieutenant Torres, a young officer barely out of the academy, gestured toward the main screen where a three-dimensional representation of the approaching object slowly rotated. "It's definitely organic, sir. Length approximately 200 meters, mass readings suggest dense bone and muscle tissue. But, here's the strange part, it's giving off thermal signatures consistent with internal combustion, but at temperatures that should be impossible for any known lifeform." Commander Vale turned to address the assembled crew. "Initial scans suggest we're dealing with a dragon. Specifically, one of the young ones based on the size readings. But, according to our intelligence files, dragons don't venture into this sector of space. Their territory is 3 systems away, and they've never shown interest in human space before." The word dragon sent a ripple of tension through the bridge crew. Humanity's knowledge of the ancient species was limited but deeply unsettling. Dragons were among the oldest spacefaring races in the galaxy, possessing technology that seemed to blur the line between science and magic. They rarely interacted with younger species, and, when they did, it was usually to assert their dominance or lay claim to resources. Individual dragons were known to be incredibly powerful, capable of surviving in the vacuum of space and generating internal fires hot enough to melt most known metals. Their ships, when they bothered to use them, were grown rather than built, incorporating living tissue with crystalline technology in ways that human science could barely comprehend. "Sir," came the voice of Ensign Park from the communications station, "I'm detecting what might be distress signals." The patterns are consistent with standard galactic emergency broadcasts, but the power levels are fluctuating wildly. Marcus studied the readouts more carefully. His engineering background allowed him to interpret the technical data in ways that the bridge crew sometimes missed. "Commander, if I may, the thermal fluctuations and the distress signals suggest that whatever's approaching us is injured. Look at the way the heat signatures are cycling. That's not normal dragon physiology according to our files. Something's wrong with its internal fire." The bridge fell silent as they processed this information. Dragons were legendary for their resilience and self-sufficiency. The idea that one might be in genuine distress was almost inconceivable. "Incoming transmission," Ensign Park announced suddenly. "It's weak, but I'm getting audio." The speakers crackled with static before a voice emerged, clearly draconic based on the harmonic resonance patterns that characterized their speech, but there was something different about it. Where dragon voices were typically deep and commanding, carrying the weight of millennia of authority, this voice was higher, almost plaintive. "Please," the voice said in heavily accented standard galactic, "I mean no harm. I am injured and seek only temporary shelter to recover. I will not remain long, and I will not trouble anyone. Please, if anyone can hear this, I just need somewhere safe to rest." The bridge crew exchanged glances. This was unprecedented. Dragons didn't ask for help. They didn't plead. They certainly didn't sound young and frightened. Commander Vale made the decision that would change all their lives. "Ensign Park, open a channel. This is Orbital Station Kepler 442 to the approaching vessel. We've received your distress call. State your name and the nature of your emergency." The response came quickly, tinged with what sounded like relief and surprise. "This is Zarakai of the Embercliff's Clutch. I have been exiled from my people. My internal flame burns incorrectly, and I have been cast out until I can prove my worth. I am badly injured from an encounter with Stellar Pirates 3 systems back. I have medical supplies, but I lack the facilities to properly treat my wounds." The silence that followed was profound. Exile from a dragon clutch was something that existed in theoretical xenoanthropology texts but had never been documented in real life. Dragons were intensely social creatures within their own species, despite their reputation for isolation from other races. The psychological trauma of exile was considered potentially fatal for their kind. "Zarakai," Commander Vale said carefully, "what kind of assistance do you require?" "Our medical facilities are designed for humanoid species primarily, though we have some capability for treating non-human physiologies." "I do not require medical attention for my body," came the reply. "My wounds are healing as they should. But my flame burns wrong, and, without proper regulation, it will consume me from within. I have heard that humans possess great skill with mechanical systems. Perhaps there is someone among you who might understand how to help me regulate my internal fire?" All eyes turned to Marcus. His reputation as the station's miracle worker with impossible machinery was well known throughout the sector. If anyone could figure out how to help a dragon with what amounted to a malfunctioning internal fusion reactor, it would be him. Marcus felt the weight of their stares and considered the implications. Dragons were dangerous under the best of circumstances. An injured, exiled dragon with an unstable internal fire system could potentially destroy the entire station if something went wrong. But he also heard something in that young voice that resonated with him, the desperation of someone who had been cast aside by everyone they had ever known. "Commander," he said quietly, "I'd like to speak with Zarakai directly about her technical situation. If her internal fire is malfunctioning, that's essentially an engineering problem. I might be able to help." Commander Vale nodded slowly. "Zarakai, this is Chief Engineer Marcus Chen. He's our specialist in complex system diagnostics. Can you describe the nature of your internal fire malfunction?" The young dragon's voice brightened noticeably. "Marcus Chen, I thank you for your willingness to listen. My flame burns too cold and too irregular. Where it should burn at consistent temperatures approaching stellar core levels, it fluctuates wildly. Sometimes it barely maintains life support functions, other times it threatens to overwhelm my biological systems. The elders of my clutch declared it a sign of weakness and cast me out until I could learn to control it properly." Marcus was already running calculations in his head. The description sounded less like a biological malfunction and more like a control system problem.
Zarakai, have you ever had your flame systems examined by anyone other than your own people? Never. Dragons do not seek help from other species for such intimate matters. But, I am desperate, Marcus-chan. I have been alone for 2 full cycles now, and the problem grows worse. If I cannot find a solution soon, my flame will either burn itself out completely or consume me in an uncontrolled fusion reaction. The implications of either outcome were sobering. A dragon dying from flame failure would be a tragedy, but a dragon undergoing uncontrolled fusion reactions near a populated space station could be catastrophic for thousands of beings. Zarakai, Marcus said, making a decision that would echo through the galaxy. If you're willing to trust a human engineer with something so personal, I'm willing to try to help you. Can you dock with our stations safely? The pause that followed stretched for nearly a minute before the young dragon responded, and, when she did, her voice carried a note of disbelief mixed with desperate hope. You would truly help me? Even though I am dragon kind? Even though my people and yours have no formal relations? Everyone deserves help when they're in trouble, Marcus replied simply. Besides, it sounds like an interesting engineering challenge. Commander Vale stepped forward to address the practical concerns. Zarakai, our main docking bay can accommodate vessels up to 250 meters in length. However, you'll need to power down any weapons systems and allow our security teams to monitor the docking procedure. This is for everyone's safety, including yours. I understand and accept these conditions. I carry no weapons other than my natural abilities, which I will not use except in direct defense of my life. I am transmitting my approach vector now. As the bridge crew began coordinating the docking procedure, Marcus found himself wondering what he had gotten himself into. Helping a dragon was far outside his normal job description, but something about the young creature's situation called to him. Perhaps it was the loneliness he heard in her voice, or perhaps it was simply the engineer's instinct to fix what was broken. The docking procedure took nearly an hour to complete safely. Zarakai's approach was careful and deliberate, clearly designed to avoid any sudden movements that might be interpreted as aggressive. When she finally came into visual range, the crew of Kepler 442 got their first look at their unexpected guest. She was magnificent and terrible in equal measure. Her scales shifted through shades of deep emerald and burnished gold, each one the size of a dinner plate and gleaming with an inner light that spoke to the fire that burned within her. Her head was elegant and serpentine, with eyes that glowed like molten amber. Despite her size, there was something undeniably youthful about her proportions. She was clearly not yet fully grown. But it was the irregularities in her appearance that caught Marcus's attention. Patches of her scales flickered between different temperatures, creating a mottled thermal signature visible even through the station's sensors. Occasionally, small jets of superheated plasma would escape from between her scales, dissipating harmlessly into space but clearly indicating that her internal systems were indeed malfunctioning. The actual docking was accomplished through the station's largest cargo bay, with Zarakai carefully maneuvering herself into the specially designed chamber that could accommodate oversized vessels. The bay's atmospheric processors worked overtime to create a suitable environment, filling the space with a mix of gases that would be comfortable for both human and dragon physiology. When Marcus finally stood face to face with Zarakai, he was struck by how young she appeared despite her impressive size. Her massive head lowered until she was looking at him directly, and he could see intelligence and desperate hope burning in those amber eyes. Marcus Chen, she said, her voice creating harmonics that resonated through his chest, I cannot adequately express my gratitude that you would even consider helping me. I know that my kind does not have the most favorable reputation among younger species. Marcus looked up at her, noting the way small flames flickered around her nostrils and the irregular heat shimmer that surrounded her body. Well, Zarakai, let's see what we can figure out together. But, first, can you tell me exactly how your internal fire is supposed to work? I need to understand the system before I can help fix it. As Zarakai began to explain the complex biological and quantum mechanical processes that powered dragon physiology, Marcus realized that he was about to embark on the most challenging and potentially rewarding engineering project of his career. More importantly, he was about to discover that sometimes the most powerful beings in the galaxy were also the most in need of simple kindness. The young dragon story was just beginning, and Marcus Chen, chief engineer of a remote human outpost, was about to become an unlikely bridge between species that had never understood each other. What neither of them knew was that their partnership would soon attract the attention of forces much larger and more dangerous than either could imagine.
The engineering bay of Kepler 442 had never hosted a dragon before, and the modifications required to accommodate Zarakai had tested Marcus's creativity to its limits. He had rigged additional thermal regulators to handle the ambient heat she generated, installed specialized atmospheric processors to maintain air quality, and reinforced several sections of flooring to handle her considerable weight. 3 days had passed since her arrival, and Marcus had spent every waking hour trying to understand the intricate systems that kept dragons alive and functional. What he had discovered challenged everything he thought he knew about biological engineering. Dragons weren't simply living creatures who happened to generate fire, they were essentially biological fusion reactors with consciousness. Their entire physiology was built around a series of specialized organs that controlled nuclear fusion at the cellular level, generating the incredible temperatures that powered their abilities while somehow preventing their own tissues from being destroyed in the process. The primary flame chamber here, Zarakai was explaining, gesturing with one delicate claw toward a point just behind her heart, regulates the fusion process through quantum field manipulation. The secondary chambers throughout my body distribute the energy and maintain thermal equilibrium. When everything functions correctly, the system maintains itself automatically. Marcus studied the detailed biological scans he had been taking with modified medical equipment. The readings were unlike anything in human medical texts. Where human bodies operated on chemical energy and electrical impulses, Zarakai's systems showed quantum fluctuations and controlled fusion reactions occurring in real time. The problem appears to be in the quantum field regulation, he mused, pointing to a series of anomalous readings on his diagnostic screens. See these fluctuations here? Your primary chamber isn't maintaining consistent field strength. That's causing the fusion rate to vary wildly, which explains the temperature swings you've been experiencing. Zarakai lowered her great head to examine the screens more closely. Despite her size and alien nature, Marcus had found her to be remarkably intelligent and eager to understand the technical aspects of her condition. She had absorbed human engineering concepts with startling speed, adapting them to her own physiological framework. In my clutch, she said quietly, such irregularities are considered shameful. The elders taught that proper flame control comes through meditation and spiritual discipline. They said my weakness of character was causing my flame to burn improperly. Marcus looked up at her with a frown. That's like saying a malfunctioning reactor is the result of moral failure. Your quantum field generators are sophisticated biological machines, Zarakai. If they're not working correctly, it's an engineering problem, not a character flaw. The young dragon's eyes brightened at his words, and Marcus realized how deeply the shame of her exile had affected her. She had internalized her clutch's judgment, believing that her inability to control her internal fire was somehow her fault. You truly believe this is simply a mechanical malfunction? She asked, hope coloring her voice. I'm certain of it. Look at these readings here. Marcus pulled up a detailed analysis of her quantum field patterns. Your field generators are actually incredibly sophisticated, more advanced than anything humans have developed. But they're calibrated incorrectly. It's like having a perfectly good engine with the wrong fuel mixture. Their work was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Vale, accompanied by Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief medical officer. Both women wore expressions of professional concern as they approached. Marcus, Dr. Kim has some concerns about the modifications you've made to the medical bay, Commander Vale said diplomatically. Dr. Kim stepped forward, her tablet displaying readings from the station's environmental monitors. The energy fluctuations from Zarakai's condition are affecting our medical equipment 2 decks away. If she experiences another major thermal spike, it could potentially damage critical life support systems. Marcus felt a surge of protective instinct that surprised him. Over the past 3 days, he had come to genuinely care about the young dragon's welfare. She was brilliant, curious, and, despite her fearsome appearance, remarkably gentle in her interactions with the station's crew. We're making progress on stabilizing her systems, he said. I think I've identified the root cause of the problem. Zarakai shifted uncomfortably, her massive form creating subtle vibrations through the deck plating. If my presence endangers your people, I should leave immediately. I did not come here to put others at risk. Nobody's going anywhere until we fix this, Marcus said firmly. He turned to Dr. Kim with a determined expression. Give me 48 more hours. I believe I can resolve the quantum field instability. Commander Vale studied both of them carefully. Marcus, what exactly are you proposing to do? Marcus activated the main diagnostic display, showing a three-dimensional representation of Zarakai's internal systems.
Dragon biology uses quantum field manipulation to control fusion reactions at the cellular level.
Zarakai's field generators aren't properly synchronized with each other, causing cascade failures throughout her system. He highlighted several key areas on the display. The solution is to create an external field harmonizer that can teach her biological systems to synchronize properly. Once her natural systems learn the correct patterns, the harmonizer can be removed.
Dr. Kim looked skeptical.
You're talking about quantum field manipulation.
That's theoretical physics, not practical engineering.
Not for dragons, Zarakai interjected softly. My people have used such principles for millions of years. What Marcus proposes is elegant. Your human technology approaches quantum mechanics differently than ours, but the underlying principles are the same.
Marcus nodded enthusiastically.
Exactly. Human quantum computers use different methods than dragon biology, but they're both manipulating quantum fields. I can adapt our quantum processing units to generate the harmonic patterns Zarakai's systems need to learn proper synchronization. The explanation was interrupted by an alarm from the communications station. Ensign Park's voice crackled through the comm system with obvious tension.
Commander Vale to the bridge immediately. We have multiple contacts approaching from the Draconic territories.
Commander Vale's expression hardened.
How long until they arrive?
6 hours at current speed, ma'am.
They're transmitting identification codes for a formal dragon delegation. Zarakai's reaction was immediate and visceral.
Her entire body went rigid, and the temperature in the engineering bay spiked noticeably as her emotional distress triggered another thermal fluctuation.
They have come for me. The Council of Elders must have detected my presence here.
Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her massive forearm, noting how her scales radiated heat like a fusion furnace.
What does that mean exactly?
Exiles are forbidden from seeking help from other species.
By accepting your assistance, I have violated the terms of my banishment. The penalty is...
She paused, her voice dropping to barely a whisper.
The penalty is permanent severance from the flame.
They will use their technologies to destroy my ability to generate internal fire. I will become cold-blooded, essentially dead while still living. The horror in her voice was unmistakable, and Marcus felt anger building in his chest. The idea that anyone would inflict such a fate on someone for the crime of seeking help when they needed it was unconscionable.
Commander, we need to accelerate our timeline, he said urgently.
If I can stabilize Zarakai's systems before the delegation arrives, they'll have no grounds to claim she's unfit.
Commander Vale considered the political implications carefully.
Marcus, interfering in dragon internal affairs could have serious consequences for human-dragon relations.
We've managed to maintain peaceful neutrality with their empire for decades.
Ma'am, Zarakai said, her voice carrying new strength, may I speak? I understand the position my presence has placed you in, and I would not ask you to risk conflict with my people on my behalf. But Marcus-chan has shown me kindness that my own kind denied me. If there is any way to complete his work before the delegation arrives, I would be grateful for the attempt. Marcus was already moving toward his equipment storage, pulling out components for the quantum harmonizer he had been designing.
I can do this, Commander.
The theory is sound, and I've already fabricated most of the necessary components. I just need time to calibrate the system to Zarakai's specific quantum signature.
Dr. Kim stepped forward with professional concern.
Marcus, you're talking about experimental quantum field manipulation on a living being. The risks are mine to take, Zarakai interrupted gently. Dr. Kim, I understand your medical concerns, but without Marcus's help, my internal fire will eventually consume me anyway. At least this way, there is hope. Commander Vale made the command decision that would define the next phase of the crisis.
Do it.
Marcus, you have 6 hours to complete your work. Dr. Kim, I want full medical monitoring of both Zarakai and Marcus during the procedure.
If anything goes wrong, we shut it down immediately.
The next few hours became a blur of intense technical work. Marcus pushed himself harder than ever before, fabricating and calibrating quantum field generators while Zarakai provided detailed feedback about her internal systems. The young dragon proved to be an invaluable partner, her understanding of quantum mechanics from a biological perspective complementing his engineering knowledge perfectly. The quantum harmonizer took shape as a crystalline device that resembled a fusion of human technology and something more organic. Marcus had incorporated some of Zarakai's own shed scales into the design, using their natural quantum properties to bridge the gap between artificial and biological systems. The harmonic frequencies need to match your natural biorhythms exactly, Marcus explained as he made final adjustments to the device. If we get this wrong, it could make your condition worse instead of better. Zarakai nodded, her massive head moving carefully to avoid disrupting his delicate work. I trust your expertise, Marcus Chen. You have already shown me more understanding of my condition than centuries of dragon healers. As the deadline approached, Marcus activated the quantum harmonizer for the first time. The device hummed with barely contained energy, its crystalline structure beginning to glow with the same inner light that characterized dragon scales. Zarakai positioned herself within the device's field projection area, her eyes closed in concentration. Beginning harmonic synchronization, Marcus announced, carefully adjusting the field strength to match the readings from Zarakai's biological systems. How does that feel? For the first time since her arrival, Zarakai's thermal signature began to stabilize. The irregular fluctuations that had plagued her system slowly smoothed out as her biological quantum field generators learned to synchronize with each other. It's working, she breathed, wonder evident in her voice. I can feel my flames settling into proper patterns. The pain is fading. Marcus monitored the readings carefully, making minute adjustments to maintain optimal synchronization. After nearly an hour of continuous operation, Zarakai's systems had stabilized completely. Her thermal output had become steady and controlled, and the quantum field readings showed perfect harmony between all her biological systems. Synchronization complete, Marcus announced with satisfaction. Your systems have learned the correct patterns. You should be able to maintain proper flame control independently now. Zarakai opened her eyes, and Marcus was struck by how different she looked. The desperation and pain that had marked her features were gone, replaced by confidence and strength. When she moved, it was with fluid grace rather than the careful restraint she had shown before. Marcus Chen, she said, her voice resonating with new power, you have given me back my life. I am in your debt. Their celebration was cut short by another announcement from the bridge. Commander Vale, the Dragon delegation is requesting immediate communication. They're demanding to speak with the exile. Commander Vale looked between Marcus and Zarakai, recognizing that whatever happened next would have consequences far beyond their small station. Are you ready for this? Zarakai drew herself up to her full height, every scale gleaming with controlled internal fire. Yes, Commander. I am ready to face my people as I truly am, not as a broken exile, but as a dragon whose flame burns pure and strong, thanks to the wisdom and kindness of humans. As they prepared to face the approaching delegation, Marcus realized that their work had accomplished something far more significant than simply fixing a biological malfunction. They had proven that cooperation between species could achieve what isolation and tradition could not. The young dragon who had arrived broken and desperate was now ready to challenge the very foundations of dragon society. The real test, however, was yet to come. The main docking bay of Kepler 442 had been transformed into a diplomatic venue of unprecedented importance. The approaching dragon delegation consisted of 3 ancient elders, each representing thousands of years of accumulated power and tradition. Their ships were living vessels of organic crystal and metal, grown rather than built, pulsing with internal energies that made the station's sensors struggle to maintain accurate readings. Marcus stood beside Zarakai in the vast chamber, both of them dwarfed by the approaching representatives of one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. The young dragon had insisted that he remain present during the confrontation, claiming that his role in her recovery gave him standing in the matter. Commander Vale and her senior staff occupied a respectful distance, positioned to observe but not interfere unless absolutely necessary. The first dragon to emerge from the delegation ships was a massive creature whose scales had deepened to deep crimson with age, each one etched with patterns that spoke of millennia of experience. This was Elder Thaction, whose reputation for strict adherence to tradition was legendary even among his own kind. Behind him came Elder Mira, whose silver-blue scales reflected the bay's lighting like polished mirrors, and Elder Corvin, whose black scales seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When Thaction spoke, his voice carried the weight of cosmic authority, each word resonating through the chamber with harmonics that human ears could barely process. Zarakai of the Ember Cliff's Clutch, you have violated the sacred terms of your exile. By seeking aid from lesser species, you have brought shame upon all dragon kind. Zarakai stepped forward, her own voice now carrying a strength and confidence that had been absent when she first arrived. "Honored elders, I greet you with respect for your years and wisdom. But I must respectfully disagree with your characterization of my actions." The temperature in the bay rose noticeably as the elders' combined emotional response manifested in increased thermal output. Elder Mira's voice carried the chill of deep space despite the heat she generated. "You dare to argue with the Council of Elders? Your flame burns impure, marking you as defective. No amount of alien interference can change this fundamental truth." Marcus felt compelled to step forward, despite the obvious danger of intervening in dragon politics. "Honored elders, with respect, you're wrong about the nature of Zarakai's condition. Her flame doesn't burn impure because of any defect in her character or bloodline. It was a quantum field synchronization problem, a technical malfunction that could be corrected with proper understanding." Elder Corvin's attention focused on Marcus with unsettling intensity. "Human, you presume to understand dragon physiology better than those who have studied it for millennia?" "I understand quantum field mechanics," Marcus replied firmly. "And Zarakai's biological systems operate on the same fundamental principles as human quantum computers, just implemented through biological rather than technological means. Her condition was never a spiritual failing, it was an engineering problem that required an engineering solution." To demonstrate his point, Marcus activated a portable display showing the detailed readings from Zarakai's systems before and after treatment. "These are her quantum field harmonics from 3 days ago, when she arrived. Notice the irregular fluctuations and cascade failures throughout her biological matrix." The elders studied the data with obvious interest, their ancient minds processing information with startling speed. Marcus continued his explanation, switching the display to show Zarakai's current readings. "And these are her current harmonics. Perfect synchronization between all quantum field generators, stable fusion rates, and optimal energy distribution. She didn't need spiritual guidance or character improvement, she needed someone to debug her biological systems." Zarakai added her own voice to the argument. "Honored elders, for 2 cycles I meditated and practiced as you instructed, trying to achieve proper flame control through spiritual discipline. But Marcus Chen identified and corrected the actual problem in a matter of days through scientific analysis." Elder Thaction's massive form shifted as he considered this information. Dragons were, above all else, logical beings despite their reputation for mysticism. They had built one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations through the application of reason and scientific method, even if their science often seemed like magic to younger races. "Show us this device that supposedly corrected the irreparable," he commanded. Marcus gestured toward the quantum harmonizer, which still sat connected to the base power grid where they had used it hours earlier. The harmonizer works by generating precisely calibrated quantum field patterns that teach biological systems to synchronize properly. Once the learning process is complete, the external device is no longer needed. Elder Mira approached the device, her sensors analyzing its construction with interest. This design incorporates scales from the exile's own body. "Ingenious. You have created a bridge between organic and artificial quantum field manipulation. The theory came from studying Zarakai's biological systems," Marcus explained. "Dragons have been doing quantum field manipulation at the cellular level for millions of years. I just adapted human technology to complement her natural processes." The 3 elders moved into a tight formation, communicating in harmonic frequencies too complex for the station's translators to process. Their discussion lasted several minutes while the humans and Zarakai waited tensely for the verdict. When they separated, it was Elder Corvin who spoke first. "The device demonstrates sophisticated understanding of both dragon physiology and quantum mechanics. The readings show that the exile systems now function within normal parameters." Elder Thaction's voice carried grudging respect as he addressed Marcus directly. "Human engineer, your analysis reveals knowledge that our own healers lacked. We have treated similar conditions as spiritual failings for centuries, never recognizing the underlying quantum field mechanics." Zarakai stepped forward boldly. "Honored elders, does this mean my exile is ended? My flame burns pure and strong now, as it should have from the beginning." But Elder Mira's response carried ominous undertones. "The exile was not imposed solely due to your flame irregularities, youngling. Your willingness to seek help from aliens reveals a fundamental lack of proper dragon pride. You have contaminated yourself through contact with lesser species. Marcus felt anger building in his chest at the casual dismissal of his species as lesser, but he forced himself to remain calm. This was Zarakai's battle to fight, and losing his temper would only make things worse for her.
Zarakai's response surprised everyone present. Honored elders, I must respectfully challenge your designation of humans as a lesser species.
In the time I have spent here, I have observed capabilities that rival our own in many respects.
Elder Thaction's voice carried warning. Explain yourself carefully, youngling. Such statements border on heresy. Marcus Chen solved a problem that dragon healers could not, Zarakai continued with growing confidence.
His quantum harmonizer represents a fusion of human and dragon understanding that is more effective than either could achieve alone.
How can we call lesser a species that can teach us new applications of our own abilities? The Bae fell silent as the implications of her words sank in.
Dragons prided themselves on their technological and intellectual superiority over younger races. The suggestion that they might actually benefit from collaboration was revolutionary. Elder Corvin studied the quantum harmonizer more carefully, his ancient mind processing the implications.
The device does represent novel applications of known principles.
The hybrid approach to quantum field manipulation shows potential.
Commander Vale chose this moment to step forward diplomatically. Honored elders, if I may address a practical concern.
Orbital Station Kepler 442 serves as a neutral meeting place for many species. We've found that cooperation and mutual assistance often benefit everyone involved. Elder Mira turned her attention to the human commander.
You claim that your species regularly assists others without expectation of dominance or tribute? It's fundamental to human nature, Commander Vale replied.
When someone needs help, we help them.
It's not complicated.
Marcus added his own perspective. Working with Zarakai has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. Her understanding of quantum mechanics from a biological perspective gave me insights I never could have achieved alone.
This wasn't charity, it was collaboration between equals.
The word equals created another moment of tension as the elders processed this unprecedented concept. Dragons had never considered any other species their equals, and the suggestion challenged thousands of years of cultural conditioning.
Zarakai seized the moment to press her advantage. Honored elders, I propose that my exile has served a greater purpose than anyone anticipated.
Through my time among humans, I have discovered new possibilities for dragon advancement.
Should this not be celebrated rather than punished? Elder Thaction's response was carefully measured.
Your condition has indeed been corrected through methods unknown to our healers. This suggests that there may be value in examining alien perspectives on certain technical matters.
Elder Mira added her own thoughts.
The quantum harmonizer represents technology that could benefit other young dragons who experience similar difficulties. Perhaps a formal exchange of knowledge would be appropriate.
The shift in the elders' attitudes was subtle but unmistakable.
They were beginning to see potential advantages in the situation rather than simply viewing it as a violation of tradition. Elder Corvin sealed the new direction of the discussion.
Zarakai of the Ember Cliffs Clutch, your exile is hereby ended.
You will return with us to Dragon Space, but not in shame. Instead, you will serve as our first cultural and technical exchange specialist, tasked with establishing formal cooperation protocols with human scientific communities. Zarakai's joy was evident in the way her scales brightened and her flame signature strengthened. But Marcus felt a pang of loss at the thought of her departure. Over the past few days, he had come to value her intelligence, curiosity, and gentle nature. Honored elders, Zarakai said carefully, I am grateful beyond words for this opportunity. But I would request that Marcus Chen be recognized as my primary collaborator in these endeavors.
His expertise would be invaluable in establishing successful cooperation between our peoples.
The three elders focused their attention on Marcus with new interest.
Elder Thaction spoke with formal gravity.
Marcus Chen, Chief Engineer of Orbital Station Kepler 442, the Council of Elders extends to you an unprecedented invitation. Would you be willing to serve as humanity's first interspecies technical advisor to the Dragon territories? Marcus looked at Zarakai, seeing hope and excitement in her amber eyes. Then, he glanced at Commander Vale, who nodded her encouragement despite the obvious reluctance to lose her best engineer. I would be honored to accept, Marcus replied. But I'd like to maintain my connection to Kepler 442 as well. This station could serve as an excellent neutral ground for ongoing cooperation.
Elder Mira's approval was evident in her voice. Acceptable. The station will be designated as an official diplomatic facility for human-dragon relations. As the formal negotiations continued, Marcus realized that what had begun as a simple act of kindness toward a stranded young dragon had evolved into something that would reshape interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. Zarakai had found more than just a cure for her condition, she had found a new purpose that would benefit both their peoples. But, even as they celebrated this diplomatic breakthrough, none of them realized that their activities had attracted the attention of other galactic powers who viewed the prospect of human-dragon cooperation with alarm. Forces were already mobilizing to prevent this alliance from taking root, and the real challenges lay ahead. 3 months had passed since the historic meeting between the Dragon Elders and the crew of Kepler 442, and the galaxy was already feeling the ripple effects of this unprecedented alliance. Marcus Chen found himself dividing his time between the station and the Dragon territories, working alongside Zarakai to develop technologies that neither species could have created alone. The first joint facility, constructed in orbit around the neutral world of Haven Prime, represented a marvel of hybrid engineering. Human modular construction techniques had been merged with Dragon biocrystal growth technology to create structures that were both adaptable and self-repairing. The facility served as both a research station and a diplomatic center, hosting delegations from dozens of species curious about the implications of human-dragon cooperation. Marcus stood in the facility's central laboratory, watching Zarakai demonstrate their latest creation to a group of visiting scientists. The quantum biosynthesizer they had developed could manufacture complex materials by combining human nanotechnology with dragon biological manipulation, creating substances that had properties impossible to achieve through conventional means. The key breakthrough, Zarakai was explaining to their audience, came when Marcus realized that our biological quantum fields could be used to guide human nanoscale fabrication processes. Instead of fighting against quantum uncertainty, we learned to harness it. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a leading xenobiologist from Earth, raised her hand with obvious excitement. The applications for medical technology alone could revolutionize treatment for hundreds of species. When can we begin practical trials? Marcus activated a holographic display showing their testing results. We're already conducting preliminary trials with voluntary subjects from 17 different species. The biosynthesizer can create custom medications tailored to individual genetic profiles in real time. The implications were staggering. Traditional pharmaceuticals required years of development and testing for each species, often with limited effectiveness due to biological variations. The quantum biosynthesizer could potentially create personalized treatments for any known physiology within hours. Their presentation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Commander Vale aboard Kepler 442. Her image appeared on the main display, and her expression carried serious concern. Marcus, Zarakai, we have a situation developing. Long-range sensors are detecting a fleet of hegemony warships approaching the Haven system. They're not responding to diplomatic hails, and their approach vector suggests hostile intent. The stellar hegemony was a coalition of older galactic civilizations that had dominated interstellar politics for millennia. They viewed the emergence of new alliances with suspicion, particularly when those alliances involved species as powerful as humans and dragons working together. Zarakai's scales darkened with concern. The hegemony has always feared dragon independence from galactic politics. Our cooperation with humans threatens their ability to maintain control through isolation and manipulation. Marcus was already running calculations on the approaching fleet. What's their estimated arrival time? 18 hours, Commander Vale replied. They have 3 dreadnoughts and multiple support vessels. The Haven Defense Force is no match for that kind of firepower. Dr. Vasquez and the other visiting scientists began showing signs of panic at the prospect of being caught in a conflict zone. Marcus quickly took charge of the situation, his engineering background making him naturally suited to crisis management. Commander, begin evacuation procedures for all non-essential personnel. Dr. Vasquez, please coordinate with your teams to secure all research data and prepare for possible facility shutdown. Zarakai moved closer to Marcus, her massive presence oddly comforting despite the circumstances. The hegemony will demand that we cease all cooperation and return to our traditional isolation. They cannot afford to allow our alliance to inspire other species to seek similar partnerships. Well, they're going to be disappointed, Marcus replied firmly. We're not backing down from this. The technology we're developing here could benefit the entire galaxy. We just need to convince them of that. Elder Thaction's voice suddenly resonated through the facility's communication system, transmitted from the Dragon territory several light-years away. Zarakai, Marcus Chen, the Council of Elders has been monitoring the approaching hegemony fleet. We are prepared to dispatch military assets to defend Haven Prime if necessary. The prospect of open conflict between dragons and the hegemony was terrifying. Such a war could engulf multiple sectors of the galaxy, causing untold devastation to countless civilian populations. Marcus activated the facility's main communication array, broadcasting on emergency diplomatic frequencies. This is Marcus Chen, calling the approaching hegemony fleet. I request immediate communication with your commanding officer to discuss a peaceful resolution to this situation. The response came quickly, carried by a voice that Marcus recognized from intelligence briefings as belonging to Admiral Corin Voss, one of the hegemony's most experienced military commanders. Marcus Chen, you and your dragon allies are hereby ordered to cease all cooperative activities and return to your respective territories. The uncontrolled development of hybrid technologies poses a threat to galactic stability. Zarakai stepped forward to address the Admiral directly. Admiral Voss, I am Zarakai of the Ember Cliffs Clutch. The technologies we are developing here are designed to benefit all species, not to threaten anyone. We invite the hegemony to observe our work and judge its merit for themselves. The hegemony does not negotiate with rogue elements, Admiral Voss replied coldly. You have 6 hours to comply with our directives before we take military action. The communication ended abruptly, leaving the facility's staff to contemplate their limited options. Marcus looked around at the assembled scientists, seeing fear and confusion in their faces. These were researchers and diplomats, not soldiers, and they were being threatened with destruction for the crime of advancing scientific knowledge. There has to be another way, Dr. Vasquez said desperately. Surely the hegemony can be made to understand the peaceful nature of our research. Marcus was already formulating a plan that drew on both his engineering background and his growing understanding of galactic politics. Zarakai, how quickly could we manufacture a large-scale demonstration of our biosynthesis technology? Given adequate resources, perhaps 2 hours for basic fabrication. But what did you have in mind? Marcus activated the facility's main fabrication systems, uploading design specifications for a device that had been theoretical until now. We're going to create something the hegemony can't ignore, a quantum beacon that can neutralize weapons systems without causing permanent damage. The concept was brilliant in its audacity. Using their hybrid technology, they could create a device that would temporarily disable all weapons within a significant radius, forcing any conflict to be resolved through diplomacy rather than violence. Marcus, that's never been tested on such a scale, Zarakai pointed out, though her voice carried excitement rather than concern. The quantum field requirements would be enormous. That's why I need your help, Marcus replied, already beginning to set up the manufacturing process. Your biological quantum field generation combined with our fabrication technology should be able to create something large enough to affect an entire fleet. Word of their plan reached the Dragon Elders within the hour, transmitted through quantum communication channels that operated faster than traditional radio. Elder Corvin's voice carried approval and concern in equal measure. The concept is sound, but the risks are considerable. If the quantum beacon fails or causes unintended effects, it could be interpreted as an attack rather than a peaceful demonstration. Elder Mira added her own perspective. However, if successful, such a device would demonstrate the defensive potential of human-dragon cooperation in a way that even the hegemony cannot ignore. With only hours remaining before the deadline, Marcus and Zarakai threw themselves into the most ambitious engineering project of their partnership. The quantum beacon required precise integration of human nanotechnology, dragon biocrystal matrices, and quantum field generators operating at power levels never before attempted. Dr. Vasquez and her team provided critical support, analyzing the theoretical implications of the device while Marcus and Zarakai handled the practical construction. The facility's other researchers worked to complete evacuation procedures while simultaneously documenting their ongoing work in case the worst happened. As the hegemony deadline approached, the quantum beacon took shape as a crystalline structure nearly 10 meters tall, pulsing with internal energies that made the facility's sensors struggle to maintain stable readings. The device represented the ultimate expression of human-dragon cooperation, a fusion of technologies and philosophies that neither species could have achieved alone. Final calibration complete, Marcus announced as he made the last adjustments to the beacon's control systems. Zarakai, are you ready to provide the biological quantum field interface?
The young dragon positioned herself at the beacon's base, her scales beginning to glow as she prepared to channel enormous amounts of quantum energy through her biological systems.
Ready, Marcus. Let us show the galaxy what we can accomplish together. The activation sequence began just as Admiral Voss's fleet entered the Haven system's outer perimeter.
Long-range sensors showed the hegemony ships deploying for combat, their weapons systems charging for what they expected to be a one-sided battle. Marcus activated the facility's main communication array one final time.
Admiral Voss, this is Marcus Chen. We are about to demonstrate a technology that could change the nature of galactic conflict forever. I strongly recommend that you observe rather than attack. Your time is up, Chen. Prepare to face the consequences of your reckless actions.
The quantum beacon activated with a pulse of energy that washed across the entire Haven system, its effects rippling outward at faster-than-light speeds through quantum field manipulation. For a moment, every weapon in the system, from the hegemony fleet's massive plasma cannons to the smallest personal sidearms, simply stopped working.
The effect lasted only 60 seconds, but its implications were profound. When weapons systems came back online, they did so without any permanent damage or alteration. The beacon had demonstrated that human dragon technology could neutralize threats without causing harm, the ultimate expression of defensive rather than offensive capability. Admiral Voss's voice, when it came through the communication system, carried a note of reluctant respect. That was unexpected. How did you accomplish such a feat?
Marcus smiled as he looked at Zarakai, seeing pride and accomplishment in her amber eyes.
Admiral, what you just witnessed is what becomes possible when different species work together instead of fighting each other. We'd be happy to explain the technology to your scientists. The standoff was far from over, but the demonstration had shifted the balance of power in the negotiations. For the first time in galactic history, a new alliance had proven that it could defend itself without resorting to destruction. The real test would be whether the hegemony could adapt to this new reality or whether their fear of change would push them toward even more desperate measures. As reports of the successful demonstration spread throughout the galaxy, other species began to take notice of what human-dragon cooperation could accomplish. The alliance that had begun with a single act of kindness toward a lonely young dragon was now poised to reshape the political landscape of the entire galaxy. 1 year after the confrontation at Haven Prime, the galaxy had transformed in ways that few could have predicted. The demonstration of the quantum beacon had served as a catalyst for change that rippled across every sector of known space. What began as a simple act of kindness between a human engineer and an exiled young dragon had evolved into the foundation of a new galactic order. Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly completed Unity station, watching as ships from dozens of species approached the massive structure. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, incorporating technologies from 17 different civilizations united under the principles established by the Human-Dragon Alliance. Beside him, Zarakai had grown into her role as the galaxy's first interspecies cooperation coordinator. Her scales now carried subtle patterns that marked her as an official ambassador, but her amber eyes still held the same warmth and intelligence that had captured Marcus's attention during their first meeting. The Zephyrian delegation just arrived, she reported, indicating a cluster of crystalline ships that moved through space like living jewels. Their biotechnology experts are eager to share their atmospheric manipulation techniques with our terraforming division. Marcus nodded, consulting the data tablet that had become his constant companion. And the Andromedans are bringing their temporal mechanics research. Between their time dilation technology and our quantum field manipulation, we might finally solve the faster-than-light communication problem. The transformation hadn't been without challenges. The stellar hegemony had initially responded to the success of the Human-Dragon Alliance with increased aggression, attempting to form their own coalition of traditional powers to maintain the old order. However, as more species witnessed the benefits of cooperative development, support for the hegemony's isolationist policies began to crumble. The turning point had come 6 months earlier when the hegemony themselves faced a crisis that their own technologies couldn't solve. A plague affecting multiple species across their territories had proven resistant to all conventional treatments. In desperation, they had quietly requested assistance from the biosynthesis technology developed through human-dragon cooperation. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now the director of Unity Station's Medical Research Division, had led the effort to create customized treatments for each affected species. The quantum biosynthesizer had produced personalized medications that not only cured the plague but provided insights into cross-species immunity that benefited everyone. Admiral Voss has requested a private meeting, Zarakai continued, her voice carrying amusement. He wants to discuss the hegemony's potential participation in the Cooperative Technology Initiative. Marcus smiled at the irony.
The same admiral who had threatened them with destruction a year earlier was now seeking to join the alliance he had tried to prevent.
Times change, I suppose. What did you tell him?
That he'll need to submit a formal application like everyone else and demonstrate a genuine commitment to peaceful cooperation.
No special treatment just because they're powerful.
The principles that had guided the Human-Dragon Alliance from its earliest days remained unchanged despite their growing influence. Every species, regardless of their technological advancement or political power, was treated as an equal partner. Cooperation was voluntary, and no one was forced to share technologies they weren't comfortable revealing. Commander Vale's voice came through the communication system, transmitted from Renew position as Director of Diplomatic Operations aboard Kepler 442. Marcus, Zarakai, we have the final census results from the Galactic Cooperation Survey.
I think you'll want to see these numbers. The data that appeared on their displays was remarkable.
Over 300 species had now established formal partnerships with the Alliance, sharing technologies and resources in ways that had never been attempted before. Trade disputes had decreased by 70%, territorial conflicts had virtually ended, and scientific advancement was proceeding at unprecedented rates.
The most significant development, Commander Vale continued, is the establishment of the Junior Species Protection Program.
15 civilizations that recently achieved interstellar capability have requested mentorship through the Alliance rather than attempting to develop independently. This had been one of Zarakai's most important contributions to the Alliance structure. Drawing from her own experience as an outcast who had been helped rather than exploited, she had insisted on creating formal mechanisms to protect and support newly spacefaring civilizations. Instead of being absorbed into existing power structures or left to struggle alone, young species could now access the accumulated knowledge and resources of the entire Alliance. The Terran Educational Exchange has exceeded all projections, Zarakai added, consulting her own reports. Over 10,000 students from Alliance species are currently studying at human universities, while an equal number of human students are pursuing education in alien institutions.
Marcus felt a deep sense of satisfaction as he reviewed the educational statistics.
The exchange programs had proven to be one of the most effective ways to build lasting relationships between species. Young beings who had studied together and formed friendships across species lines would carry those bonds throughout their careers, creating a generation of leaders who saw cooperation as natural rather than exceptional. Their review was interrupted by an emergency signal from the station's traffic control center. Priority message for Ambassador Zarakai from the Dragon territories.
Elder Thaction is requesting immediate conference.
The holographic image of Elder Thaction appeared in the observation lounge, his ancient features showing an emotion that Marcus had never seen before, something that might have been pride mixed with wonder. Zarakai, Marcus Chen, the Elder began, his voice carrying formal gravity. The Council of Elders has reached a historic decision. For the first time in Dragon history, we are extending an invitation to non-dragons to visit our most sacred sites and share in our deepest cultural traditions.
The implications were staggering.
Dragon culture had remained essentially closed to outsiders for millions of years. Their willingness to open even selected sites to Alliance members represented a level of trust that would have been impossible to imagine just a year earlier. The first cultural exchange will include representatives from 12 Alliance species, Elder Thaction continued. Marcus Chen, as the first human to earn the respect of dragonkind, you will serve as the primary guide for your species delegation.
Marcus felt overwhelmed by the honor being offered. Elder Thaction, I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity. When would you like us to begin preparations? The ceremony will take place during the next alignment of the three suns, 6 weeks hence.
But that is not the only reason for my communication today. The Elder's image shifted to show what appeared to be a vast construction project taking place in deep space, surrounded by ships from multiple Alliance species working together on something of unprecedented scale. The Nexus project has entered its final phase, Elder Thaction explained. When complete, it will serve as a permanent headquarters for the Galactic Cooperative Alliance, positioned at the exact gravitational center of our local stellar cluster. Marcus stared at the construction images with awe. The Nexus was designed to be entirely self-sufficient, capable of supporting millions of beings from hundreds of different species simultaneously. It would serve as both a governmental center and a research facility, equipped with the most advanced technologies that the Alliance could create.
The Nexus represents everything we've accomplished, Zarakai said softly.
A place where any species can come to seek help, share knowledge, or simply find friendship among the stars. As they watched the construction progress, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. It had all started with a simple decision to help someone in need, without regard for species, politics, or potential consequences. That single act of kindness had revealed possibilities that no one had imagined. "There's something else," Elder Thaction continued, and his voice now carried a warmth that was entirely new. "The Council of Elders has decided to establish a new tradition in dragon culture. Every year, on the anniversary of your first meeting with Zarakai, we will celebrate the Day of Unexpected Friendship. It will serve as a reminder that sometimes the most important discoveries come not from grand plans or ancient wisdom, but from simple kindness offered to those who need it most." Zarakai's emotional response was immediately visible in the brightening of her scales and the strengthening of her flame signature. When she spoke, her voice carried the joy of someone who had found not just acceptance but celebration of the very qualities that had once led to her exile. "Marcus," she said, turning to face him directly, "when I first came to Kepler 442, I was broken, desperate, and alone. I believed that I was fundamentally flawed and that no one would ever accept me as I was. You didn't just fix my quantum field fluctuations, you showed me that being different wasn't something to hide or be ashamed of." Marcus felt his own emotions rising as he responded. "Zarakai, you changed my life just as much. Working with you taught me that the most amazing discoveries happen when we stop trying to solve problems alone and start embracing what we can accomplish together." The friendship between them had become the model for interspecies cooperation throughout the Alliance. Their partnership demonstrated that different didn't mean inferior, that cooperation could achieve more than competition, and that the greatest strength came from diversity rather than uniformity. As they continued to watch the Nexus construction, reports began flowing in from across Alliance space. New technologies were being developed daily through collaborative research. Former enemies were becoming allies as they discovered mutual interests and shared challenges. Young civilizations were flourishing under the guidance and protection of the Alliance rather than struggling alone or being exploited by more powerful neighbors. The Galactic Historical Archive wants to commission an official record of how the Alliance began, Commander Vale reported from Kepler 442. "They're calling it the most significant development in galactic civilization since the invention of faster-than-light travel." Marcus laughed at the grand terminology being applied to what had started as a maintenance engineer trying to help a stranded dragon. "I suppose we should probably write it down before everyone forgets that this all started because someone needed help fixing a broken fusion reactor." Zarakai's amusement was evident in the harmonic patterns of her voice. "Perhaps we should title it A Practical Guide to Quantum Field Harmonization and Accidentally Changing the Galaxy." Their laughter was interrupted by another priority communication, this time from the newest members of the Alliance. The Kepler 442 station had become a pilgrimage site of sorts for species seeking to join the cooperative framework, and today brought representatives from the distant Magellanic clouds who had traveled for months just to request membership. "Ambassador Zarakai," came the transmission from the delegation leader, a being whose crystalline form reflected the light of distant stars. "We bring greetings from the ethereal collective of the Greater Magellanic Cloud. We have observed the transformation your alliance has brought to this region of space, and we wish to contribute our own knowledge to the cooperative effort." The request represented another milestone in the alliance's growth. Never before had civilizations from other galaxies sought to join a local cooperative framework. The principles of mutual aid and shared advancement had proven so attractive that they were drawing interest from across the cosmic void. As Marcus prepared to respond to the delegation, he realized that they had reached a point where the Alliance was becoming something greater than the sum of its parts. It was evolving into a new form of galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than competition, inclusion rather than exclusion, and the belief that everyone had something valuable to contribute. The young dragon who had once whispered "No one will have me" had not only found a home but had helped create a place where every being could find acceptance and purpose. The human engineer who had simply wanted to fix what was broken had discovered that sometimes the most important repairs involved healing hearts and building bridges between different worlds. Looking out at the construction of the Nexus and the ships of dozens of species working together in harmony, Marcus realized that their story was no longer about a dragon and a human who had helped each other. It had become the foundation myth of a new age in galactic history, an age where the greatest adventures began not with conquest or competition, but with the simple words, "How can I help?" The galaxy had found its way to a new dawn, and it had all started with kindness offered to someone who needed it most. In years to come, that lesson would echo through countless worlds, carried by beings who understood that the strongest bonds in the universe were forged not through force or fear, but through the willingness to reach out to those who whispered in the darkness, "No one will have me," and answer back, "I will."